So I don't normally, well, I haven't been in therapy. I don't need therapy as well as I think, right? Those of us who don't know, this is that's always the conundrum, right? That's always the paradox, right? Am I healthy enough, right? So you guys shared so much information. I have a notepad, and I wanted to just ask you a few questions, if that's okay with you, sir.
Sure.
All right. So, what is the DSM-5?
That is the diagnostic and statistical manual of mental health disorders. It's our guidebook to research different mental illness, to know our diagnostic codes, our criteria and symptom sets, and prevalence of mental illnesses that for the people that we are treating.
Interesting. So these symptom sets, right? They're based on sample size, right?
Hmm.
Meaning that there have been so many trials, so many people submitting their experiences, so that you can build this data set. Is that correct?
Yes.
Nice, nice. Who would have access to this DSM-5?
Anybody can purchase a DSM-5. You can get it right on Amazon.
Yeah, but who could accurately use it to the benefit of whoever should need it?
Licensed clinical social workers, licensed professional counselors, licensed associate counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists. Am I missing anybody?
Licensing is the key word you keep
Yeah,
saying,
the operative
right?
word is licensed individuals. So
Interesting.
you have to take you have to take a test for it and receive education in rough. I believe it's 8 different domains of psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to show a mastery of a certain level of mastery in those areas to be able to accurately diagnose.
Interesting. So you would have to be judged by what would you assume to be your peers, not just a sea of randos who are looking for information from you, who are looking for this um, tilted bias, right? You would have to be judged by your peers, or those
Right.
you would assume to be your peers.
Hmm.
Okay, I have another question. So forgive me, Linda. Big fan of your content. Long time fan. Glad to see you here. But for Nelson, I have another question. Like I said, I have quite a few. What is the difference between a fan and a fanatic, and how can you recognize them, and how can they recognize their role themselves? How can they tell the difference?
So I would say with a fan is somebody that is provides a certain level of affirmation to you, a certain level of celebration of you. They follow what you do. They are a supporter of what you do, and they cheer you on. A fanatic is somebody that too closely associates their own personal life with that person, and they begin to operate in areas that crosses certain lines. So you look at some people that some people, not all, some people that follow somebody like Donald Trump, and you'll see those insurrectionists. So we'll see people that are so closely aligned with what he does and follow him so deeply that they're willing to do things that are potentially illegal in order to gain that person's approval. So you'll see people that operate like that. You see people that um, even I hate to say it, LeBron James fans. A lot
Mm,
of those are fanatics. Those are people that they diminish other people in order to prop up their person, and will go as far as threatening people online if you don't agree with their view of that person. So they often engage in they over identify with the person that they are aligned with, and they will do things that are out of the scope of um, rational uh, rational behaviors, though they just cross lines.
fascinating. So you say the what was the word that was a word that you used, but I would assume that this word that I cannot remember right now has to do with proximity, right?
Mhm.
These people have this assumed closeness with
Mhm.
those who they're creating this cult behind, that they're creating this narcissist behind. So knowing that, what's the difference between a cult and a church?
Well, a church is, and so that's a really good question. Nobody's really asked that before. A church is a gathering of like-minded people. So in this case, it's like-minded believers that share a common share a common goal, which would be to worship Christ. They
Hmm.
they practice a lot of the same behaviors that are teachings from the Bible, and then you have people that, when you dive into the cult-like behavior, is in when you take those principles and manipulate them and mold them into specific behaviors that are supposed to align with the teaching. So now you'll start to have people that, in the terms of churches, will demand that you dress a certain way. It will demand that you have a certain amount of hair, and these things will dictate whether or not you are going to heaven and hell. When you start going into those very strict behaviors, to where if you don't follow me, that means you are not a part of this, then that develops into a cult.
Man, that's we see that often in the church, right? You either are a part of the church or you're outside of it, and you're determined by your status in the church based on do you fit this criteria, right?
Mhm.
So, um, I had another question here.
Well, I will say with the church though, that is a small number of churches that start to show the cult like behavior. I think for the most part, there are people that, when you really kind of get into the Bible and you really begin to understand who God is, it it affects your life in a certain way, to where it doesn't allow you to start idolizing or worshiping an individual. And that is what becomes the problem in some churches, is that the pastor becomes the source of worship and becomes the idol rather than God.
Man, I'm
And
so
God
glad you
forbid.
said that. I'm so glad you said that because quite a few people out here, not just people who follow uh, this other person, but it's a bit of a virus on the internet. Plenty of people just hear one thing and they just go with it because they believe because other people are going with it that this is factual, right? And that creates a bit of a virus on the internet, right? And it
Mhm.
just spreads because such and such believes it, then I'm gonna believe it too. And this is how these things spread,
Mhm.
right? So my question, well, another question. Thank you for asking them. You're totally awesome. Another thing too, I wanted to mention this earlier, right? Your tone, right? Your tone is so even and understanding, right? In my field, it would be called a carrier wave. A carrier wave is something that, like it's a frequency you could put on a medium that can carry information, right? It's a steady tone, it's a steady frequency that can carry information. And when this frequency is upset, it creates noise and disturbances, man. And when I hear you speak, it is even, it is metered, and it is unbiased, right? There's nothing that's jumping out on me. So I can receive your information as information, not just as some disturbance, man. And I don't know if you recognize that, but I see it all the time, man. And, association is really the foundation. Association and pattern is really the foundation of information. And this is a telltale sign you know what you're talking about. And I just want to say thank you for those who aren't able to get up here. But my next question is, what at what point do these fakes, or can these fakes realize that they're over their head? A few times, well, at least once, you recognize that this fake was completely out of their depth, right? That they're completely in deep water. They didn't know what they were doing, and it happens often in these in these internet streets. How can a person recognize this for themselves so that they can back out?
That with recognizing these things in people is just like with the pastor, you weigh what they say against against scripture and determine whether or not what they're saying is biblically accurate and sound and logical. The same thing with these gurus. You weigh what they're saying against whatever is the standards of measurement for that particular thing. So with the gurus that are focused on mental health and these self-affirmations, is what they are saying, does it measure up against information that is in the DSM-5, for instance, if they're like practicing mental health, meaning you'll ask somebody that's actually from the mental health community whether what they are saying is accurate enough. Basically, it comes down to researching on your own. That's what it always boils down to, just not blindly accepting what people give to you.
Awesome.
This is Gail at Night. Thank you all for watching and thank you for supporting. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and set the bell to all.